Good morning and welcome back. Now, I am super excited to bring you a special treat today. I recently had the chance to sit down for lunch and a fantastic conversation with a friend of mine from the gym. His name is Derek, and he is the creative mind behind the YouTube channel Enigmatic. Now, I'll do my best to provide a link to his channel at the end of this episode, but just in case I drop the ball on the tech side of things, I'll also share his channel information here so you can check it out directly. Now, this was a deep and wide-ranging conversation, so I'll be breaking it up into 3 different episodes to give each part a little bit of room to breathe. I really hope you enjoy this as much as I enjoyed making it. And without any further delay, my name is Christopher Howell, and this is my Resolute Path. Well, I should go ahead and introduce. This is actually my gym bro, Derek. Right. First time with Resolute Path is the name of the YouTube channel.
Wonderful.
And it's it's just about being resolute and becoming a better person.
I love it, and thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Well, thank you very much for coming on and bearing it all. I mean, that can be really stressful just to be online and to put yourself and your thoughts out there, especially with as delicate and sensitive as everyone is these days.
Yeah, about anything and everything.
Anything and everything. Yep. No matter what you say, you're going to piss off at least one person.
Yep, exactly. So sometimes it's like you gotta do what you think is best, because I'm somebody, I have a thick moral fiber. I do care about how other people feel and like what they find respectful and things like that. But sometimes people kind of like go over the bar a little bit, and so it's kind of like you have to do your very best to treat people well, but also do what you need to do and say what you need to say, and not worry about that small percentage that you might set off unless you're trolling and you're trying to set people off. So,
which sometimes can be fun, but not always productive.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's actually been one of my hardest struggles of my path to improvement is I'm a very tactless and blunt individual, and honest to a fault. But a lot of times that even if I am speaking what I believe is just truth and not meaning to harm people, it just comes across as just harsh to a lot of individuals out there.
Yeah.
And I've been working on my empathy and trying to just go over my thoughts first. And my mom hit me hard on one of my episodes. She was like, well, it just boils down to if you can't see nothing nice, don't say nothing at all.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's some caveats that we could probably give to that as well, bro. Oh, thank you so much. I feel like there's some caveats we could give to that because it kind of makes me think of situations where you choose the option that is the least bad.
Yeah.
Like sometimes like you need to say something and nothing you say is going to be nice. Sometimes somebody needs to hear a hard truth, and in a certain way, like you're kind by giving them that truth, but you're not nice because the truth is hard.
Sure.
So I think like I it's funny, I agree with it, but I give caveat, and I think that's something that I kind of just do with everything.
Yeah. And I found there's people out there like I've got a friend that I've tried really, really hard. That we were talking, and I was really mellow tone. I was being as supportive as possible, and you're not doing anything wrong. I understand where you're coming from, and all this stuff. And I was like, just take a breath. And so, you mean take a breath? And she just went off on me.
Yep.
And no matter how nice and subtle I was trying to be, no matter how soft I was presenting my voice and my body motion and everything, it was just still set her off because it's just something she didn't want to hear.
Yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon. You can see it happen with like people across the board, and like I've always kind of noticed that it aligns in some ways with different degrees of emotional intelligence, right? So it's like I bring up how I'm feeling about something that you did, and even though I know that you full well didn't have any malintent, or malcontent by doing it, I still want to let you know. But I want to be careful in how I let you know, because in a certain way, I'm kind of correcting you. I'm kind of telling you like, hey, what you did wasn't cool, And so like people don't like to be corrected. People don't like to be told they're wrong, because then they have to be with feelings that they're used to avoiding, And so that's what happens a lot of times when we try to meet people, in the middle ground, especially when we're trying to like advocate for ourselves, is that we have to kind of be concerned about that, that whiplash almost.
Yeah.
And sometimes no matter what you do, it doesn't pan out the way that you would like it to,
And I'll take that actually one step deeper. What I've found is people that have a hard reaction to that constructive criticism, when you really are just trying to be nice and point something out that they're not doing as good as they could be, it's for my observations, it's people that really don't like who they are on the inside.
Yeah.
and literally do not like self-reflecting or looking inwards because they just don't like the person they are, and they're not willing to put in the work to become better.
Yeah, well, and like also like, you know, within our societal milieu, we have so many like conflicting ideas because like in a certain sense, society shames you for being who you are, no matter who you are. You know, you could be somebody that is like socially accepted, and the people that like aren't in that sphere probably don't accept you as much. You know what I mean? So like, you know, for example, a lot of people think that it's a prestigious job to be a cop, but like in today's, you know, kind of, you know, polarized times, that's a little bit stickier. Thank you so much.
Did you want to show as well?
Please. Appreciate it.
I forgot how to do these. So what were we saying? Sorry about that.
Prestigious being a cop.
Oh yeah. So, but like, there's, you know, swaths of people that hate cops at the same time.
Oh yeah.
So it's like there's a certain sense where no matter what you do, you can't win. You know,
Yeah.
and so it's about kind of like finding like the middle ground that works for you and works for like what's around you. You know what I mean? But at the same time, when we live in this like globalized world, you know, there's a lot of other like considerations to make. You know, so like what we think is right in one place may not be right in another place.
Yeah.
And now that we live in this globalized world and we're interacting with people from cultures that are very disparate to ours, you know, things are just different. You have to be adaptable, you know?
For sure.
So for example, I remember being with a friend at a pho place, and there's a lot of people that were snacking while they were chewing. They were chewing with their mouths open. Now, out east where they serve pho, that is complimenting, you know, the chef, letting them know that you enjoy it. You know, when you slurp and you're loud about it, they're like, oh man, they're loving what I made. It's a compliment to me.
Yeah.
Out here, you don't do that. You chew with your mouth closed, you like have tact when you eat and things like that, you know?
Yeah, kind of like some cultures, it's a compliment to burp or belch after a meal.
Exactly. You know, out here, we like look down on it,
Yeah.
you know, and it's like, should we? But I think that's like one of the reasons why like things are so polarized right now is that we've kind of like frayed ourselves with the amount of information that we've gotten. And so we see things that are so disparate from what we're used to that we just have to like default to what we're used to. We're like, no, that's just wrong. You know, they're just crazy.
Yeah.
You know, they're however XYZ, whatever we want to say about it. You know.
And that goes along with how you're raised, though, too. You know, you get taught and raised into believing one thing is right,
Mm-hmm.
and not all parents raise their kids to think, you know, live in tolerance and be accepting of other people and other cultures.
Yeah.
But speaking of other cultures, that's one of the main reasons that I wanted to talk with you, because quite frankly, just look at us on the outside.
Yeah.
And me and you are completely different. You would think that neither one of us would have anything in common. And that's one thing that I wanted to really kind of highlight in this conversation, that people from two completely different walks of life, you know, whether it's, you know, skin color, you know, a style of clothes, hair, whatever, it can still have something in common.
You can still come together.
Yeah,
you
for sure.
can still come together. I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. And it's like, you know, I try to be the type of person that, you know, I get along with people everywhere that I go. And I try to get along with everywhere that I go. And that doesn't mean that, like, I sacrifice aspects of myself to not be who I am. But, like, I don't look for a problem. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody says something that might be considered offensive, it's like, do I have to be offended by it? You know, I could also consider the source. Like, where do I think, you know, that statement is coming from? You know what I mean? There's a lot of times where we just like end up like picking a fight with people, and it's like we didn't need to pick a fight.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like you could have let it go. You know? So yeah, it's very interesting.
That actually touches on one of my first lessons, is that, you know, words have power, but they have the power that's given to them by the listener. And that was a hard lesson for me to learn, because I was actually running track around the field, and this was back when I was like 300 plus pounds.
Okay.
And I'll openly admit I was flopping and jostling all over the place. You know, it must be jelly because the end don't shake like that type of thing. And this guy drove by and he's like, "Keep on running, fatty." And right in that moment, like, all these different waves of emotion hit me all at once. Mm-hmm. And I had to choose what power to give those words. You know, if I hadn't heard it at all because I had earphones in, it would have fallen on deaf ears and would have had no power in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
If I had taken offense by it and gotten angry, then I would have flat out given it that power to make me angry. Mm-hmm. But instead, I was like, yeah, I am. I'm overweight. And I am kind of a fatty. And I dropped it down to gear. And I cut my lap time almost in half after hearing those words.
Wow.
And I gave those words the power to encourage and drive me to become even better and try harder. Mm-hmm. So it all depends on what kind of power you want to give the words and how you want to interpret them.
Yeah, I mean, there's something that's big to be said about like interpretation and like the power of like suggestion and interpretation, because in your instance, for example, like you were able to kind of catalyze that into something else where like a lot of people might have been like defeated by it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do we respond to our interpretations as well? You know what I mean? Like everything is like kind of a layered process where like one thing supervenes on another thing. For one thing to change, a layer down needs to change. And so that's like beautiful to hear, and it's something that I wish that like more people could kind of like take hold of. But at the same time, I don't blame anybody for not being able to go that route and like being defeated by it. Because that is our inherent response to things that are like that are negative, that kind of like beat you down. I think that's why there are people out there that aren't fit and they are afraid to like get fit, is because they've been like teased about not being fit or not being able to do something physical, and then as a reflex they end up like hating people who are fit. And it's like, no, like you shouldn't like love or hate them, like you should try to do what you want to do.
They're just projecting their own insecurities at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They hate the people that reflect upon them what is missing in their lives. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's it takes like self-awareness to check yourself on that, because that's another thing that's like, it's akin to being told that you're wrong and having to reassess, why am I wrong about this topic or that topic, or like in what aspect am I wrong about this or that. People don't want to go that route. They're going to try to like die on the hill that they're on. Like one example is the body positive movement. And it's funny because like, don't get me wrong, like I accept people as they are. You see me talk to everybody at the gym.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, I don't care what you look like. If you're happy, then be happy. If you're skinny and happy, be skinny and happy. If you're fat and happy, then be fat and happy. Yeah, I get that like society's in your ear, like no matter where you're at on the on the fence. But where I end up like drawing a line for like my support is, don't tell me that you're healthy. Because it's like, there's a difference between being healthy and happy and being like fat and happy or skinny and happy. Because you can be underweight and happy, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're healthy. I think we're safe for a moment. Yeah. Thank you. But so you can be, you can be underweight, like what's her name? Something Cooney, but she's like severely anorexic. She's like a YouTube star, right?
Yeah.
And she's kind of like promoted to like be that anorexic, and it's like her system doesn't like work as well as it could. Her body doesn't work as well as it could because she's not getting, say, for example, the nutrient density that it needs in order to function well.
Yeah.
And we go the other side of the spectrum, like people that are like very, very overweight. You literally have mass that isn't doing anything for your body.
Yeah.
Like an analogy that we can use is if I put a trailer on my Toyota Camry. And I wasn't like, there wasn't anything I needed to take on it, but everywhere I went, I just put the trailer on my Toyota Camry. My Toyota Camry is going to crap out sooner.
Yep.
When your body has more mass on it, that's especially mass that's not doing anything, the lungs have to work harder, the heart has to pump harder. That means that they're going to give out sooner. You know what I mean? So it's like, you can't say that you're healthy,
Correct.
And then we also have to just keep in mind, because I think that like health is something that's like oversimplified anyway. Like, somebody sees me eat McDonald's, for example, they're like, oh, you eat that unhealthy shit? It's like, well, right now for me in this moment, it's actually healthy. Because I need calories. I need calories that I can burn. I need calories that are going to like help me for whatever my fitness goals are. So it's like sort of subjective relative. You know what I mean?
You're just got doing a 5-mile run. It doesn't hurt you to have a 2,000 calorie hamburger.
Exactly. Or like stop by Dunkin' Donuts or something like that. So it's like, I guess like what I'm trying to say is that, I think that we need to pay a lot more attention to like nuance, and to bring that back to what you were saying about words have power. We could be a lot more delicate with the power that we give words if we pay more attention to nuance and sort of like in like an alchemical way use them more in our benefit.
Yeah. You've got a poetic way of words that is inspiring.
Thank you.
You speak nice.
Thank you very much.
And one thing that you kind of mentioned that I want to touch on is, healthy comes in all shapes and sizes.
It does.
I've seen bigger people that are healthy. And I'm a bigger person. I'll openly admit I'm about 50 pounds overweight compared to what my doctor would like me to be at, but I still feel that I'm healthy.
Mm-hmm.
This for me is a treat. I don't go out very often. I eat at home and I eat fresh foods and fresh vegetables. And I spend 3 hours at the gym 6 days a week doing cardio and weightlifting and everything else. But I'm still considered to be a big guy.
I mean, I think that's just like for you, like some of it's just your stature.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, I feel like for example, those broader shoulders, like you're just kind of stature,
yeah.
more. So I feel that.
But I'm still muffin topping over the top of my jeans over into it. And I could lose another 30 pounds at least of just fat that's just sitting on my trailer.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's I've built up the muscles and the suspension on my car to be able to handle that extra load.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And also, it's kind of you can be fat and happy. You can be skinny and happy. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're healthy, but that falls to me as kind of a more simplistic way in my mind is choose your suck.
Choose your what?
Choose your suck.
Yeah.
Yeah, and choose your suck. You know what that means? Is it sucks to be overweight. It's hard. It's a lot of work. It also sucks to be fit and hit the gym 3 days a week or even 6 days a week. So it's all just about choosing your suck. How you want to go.
I think like also it's like about like framing and like there nothing's all good, nothing's all bad. But like for me, like my framing is that there's certain physical benefits that I want to get from like going to the gym. But first and foremost, I go to the gym for here.
Yeah,
Like it's about my mind, it's about my mental. So because that's like the case, I think that certain other pressures are lowered that might inhibit me from wanting to go to the gym. At the same time, though, because like I said, nothing's all good, nothing's all bad. I've definitely overdone it because, like, it's about my mind.
Okay.
So it's like I've definitely overtrained before.
Oh yeah.
I'm probably dealing with like certain aspects of overtraining right now. Like I've lost strength in my squat, right? And it's been very frustrating. Like, what's going on? So I used to be able to hit 315 almost whenever I wanted, or like pretty regularly. And now I put 275 on my back. Like today, I put 275 on my back, and it was just too heavy. Like I didn't even try to rep it. I just held it for 10 seconds.
Okay.
And I've been working with a chiropractor who's also a massage therapist, and we've been like looking a lot like at my psoas. And I decided to just do a little bit of research, and I might have been overworking my psoas with like very heavy squats because I weigh 145 pounds, but I'm trying to squat like 225 or more on a regular basis.
I have you by 100 pounds. Wow.
I mean, how many inches do you have me by too, though? Like,
yeah, I'm only 6'2".
I'm 5'9".
Yeah, half a foot.
Yeah, see?
Wow. You do some of the most incredible stuff at the gym. Your dragon squats you do, I think that's what they're called. And just some of the calisthenic things. I see you do muscle ups, and it's like, man, I just wish that I could get there. And you are a huge inspiration to me.
Thank you.
That's actually one of the reasons why I go to Choose specifically is because I went to Golds and there's all these like just alpha bodybuilder style dudes, and that's just not what I want it to be. I want to be a guy that's functional and can do cool stuff like you. And
Thank you.
quite frankly, I'm sure a guy that's calisthenically fit can probably just fuck better than a big bully dude too. And that's one of the reasons I mentioned earlier that this last heartbreak really tore me up.
Mm-hmm.
And I opened it. It was right after my car accident, and I was up there in weight, so I wasn't performing very well that way. And that was a huge drive for me to get back into the gym, was just so I could function as a human. And part of functioning as a human is, pleasing your partner.
Yeah, definitely, brother. Yeah, but I mean, it's like about feeling good in like everything that we do. You know what I mean? Because like I feel like everybody wants to look a certain way, but it's like, how about that performance though? That's like what you're highlighting.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of those big dudes, like. I've heard people talk about it. They're like, it's kind of awkward for me when I'm at my biggest.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I can kind of see that. Like, you don't twist and move and like rock the same way.
It's literally screws up your mobility.
Yep. Makes perfect sense. And like for me, like I keep going to Choose because like, I know I'd survive fine at Golds because it's like you influencer bodybuilder gym, right? But it's the vibe. Like, yeah, I can get by. Yeah, like I'll get along fine, but I just don't want to deal with like the meatheadness.
Yeah.
And it's not saying that it's like bad to have that kind of mentality. That's just not where my mentality is at.
Yeah.
And so, I'm looking more for going hard in the paint, but I also want community, And so I want, like how I talk to everybody at the gym. Like everybody knows they can come and ask me for like tips and tricks on like, squat, deadlift, bench, whatever, That's kind of like what's more important to me than like, am I around other people that look up the same caliber as me or anything like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, there's definitely not, because you're the only person of your caliber when it comes to calisthenics in that gym. I see no one else doing the shit you do. But yeah, we do have some of the bigger guys like I got JD and Mike work out there, and they're putting up huge muscles, huge numbers on the bench. And I get great inspiration from them too, to seeing their numbers go up. Especially Mike, that dude's like 52 years old.
Oh yeah,
and he's putting up like twice his body weight.
Yep,
it's ridiculous.
Yep, he's insane. He is insane, and he inspires me because like we get in our minds, like our subconscious like soaks up things like sponges, and we get different ideas in our minds.
Please.
ADHD, and I lost my way. What was I saying again?
We were talking about Mike, and he's just an animal.
Oh, yeah. So, like, we get, like, in our head, the idea of, like, oh, you get older, like, certain expectations. Like, you get older, your body doesn't work as well. Like, you lose strength, things like that, right? And then you see him. You're like, no. Like, just keep at it. Just keep at it, and, like, things are not going to, decay as much as you think they are, like, during that span of time. There's a way to, like, keep things pretty on point and pretty optimal for your desires, you know what I mean?
For sure.
But it's kind of like pick your suck.
Yeah.
People hear about how often I go to the gym and they're like, oh, that sounds horrible. But then that comes back to, it's because it's for up here that it's not horrible.
Yeah. And yeah, I was a lot of the same way. Getting into the gym, I found it was therapeutic mentally, because you saw the improvement. When it comes to mental health, it's hard to really track your improvement and see where you're getting better. But at the gym, you see those weights go up. You see the numbers go up. And it's just to see that improvement gives you that tangible proof that you're doing better.
Yeah.
And it just puts you in a more positive mindset to know. It's almost like, for me, like making your bed first thing in the morning. Mm-hmm. You just accomplish something right off the bat, and you know that you've already got a win. Even though it's a very small win, you already have one. So hitting the gym first thing in the morning, I know I'm getting my day off to a good start. Mm-hmm. I've already got a win. I've already done something that's substantial to my self-improvement. Mm-hmm. And the whole rest of the day is just kind of downhill from there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That's one of the reasons why I prefer to go in, first thing in the morning. I mean, I also wake up kind of cranky because I have mental health issues. So, like, I just wake up, like, on the wrong side of the bed every morning. But some of, I kind of wonder how much of, the hustle culture makes it so that we're rewarded in that way in the morning. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Early to bed, early to rise.
Yeah. Like, I wonder how much of us is, like, influenced by that, even though we probably don't want, anything to do with it. You know what I mean? I'm kind of over hustle culture. I've been at it for a while. It's like, what is it really getting us? Like, it's moving us away from, like, friends. It's moving us away from family. It's moving us away from community. We have more technological advancement than we've ever had. We're globalized. We're more connected than we've ever been. And, like, people are lonelier than they've ever been. Part of that is because of hustle culture. You're expected to hustle, not, like, connect with people.
Yeah. When it comes to the hustle culture, and I was totally this way my entire 20s and 30s. I was working. I mean, at one point in time, I had a job paying me $14 an hour. I made $80,000 a year, getting paid $14 an hour. All right, can you imagine how much overtime I was putting in? Every week was 75, 80 hours.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any connections. I didn't have any friends. I went years without even seeing my blood family. Mm-hmm. And I as I've gotten older, I'm 42 now. I found it's very important just to have a good balance. And yes, you do have to have some hustle, and you have to have that purpose to keep you busy and keep you going. But you have to have the connections with friends and family, and I keep a very tight circle because I like my connections being really deep. But at the same time, I do have that outer circle, like the gym bros.
Yeah.
Where it's just, acquaintances where I can say hi and, give them fists and stuff, but not really share my deepest, darkest personal thoughts,
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's kind of like the effect of, it's kind of like titrating the effect of when you walk by somebody on the street that you've never met before. You guys lock eyes, you both smile at each other. It's just that kind of communal being. It's like I feel like it like touches something deeper in our core when we have like the big things to the little things, you know. Because it's funny, I've even had people, they've asked me, they're like, why do you smile at everybody when they look at you? And I'm like, because they looked at me and everybody could use a smile.
Yeah.
Like, if we're all like scowling and whatnot, that hits us in the subconscious. You know what I mean? That does affect us in one way or another. You know, like if you see people scowling around you more and more often, and like sometimes you see people scowling heavier if they see you smiling, you're more likely to like start scowling.
Yeah.
You know, we're monkey see, monkey do. That is a real phenomenon.
For sure. That touches on one of my prime lessons is treat as you want to be, as I want to be treated. I'm really trying to enforce the golden rule with everything I do, even though I'm not Christian, and that's where I feel it comes from. Mm-hmm. Almost every religion touches on that in some way, shape, or form. So I go into the world, and I know that I like to be smiled at, and I like people to be jovial and nice, and just pleasant in general. So yeah. I'm going to try to be pleasant to everyone else because I want everyone else to be pleasant to me, Devin.
Yep. And like, I'm definitely with you on that. I actually extended a little bit further too. And like this happens, after connection's been established, but I treat people how I want to be treated. I also treat them how they want to be treated. Uh-huh. Because like some people have certain preferences that, I might not have, So for example, in this day and age, like it's not hard to be respectful of somebody for say something innocuous like pronouns. It's just not that hard.
Yeah.
Like if you mess up, just mess up. You know what I mean? But like, I don't think that I should have to like defend the way I want to see somebody when they tell me how they want to be seen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm like, and I don't know what their experience is, so I can't say that they're just categorically wrong. So I give them the benefit of the doubt. I treat them how they want to be treated.
I can totally respect that, and this is probably going to end up getting me in trouble since I'm putting this online. But I respect other people's pronouns, and specifically if they have a new name, if they've killed their old name, they've got a new one. I'd be more than happy to call them by whatever name they want. But they also cannot alter my perception. And if, quite frankly, I see you as a dude, if you sat here today in front of me and said that you identify as a girl, I would call you she, and I would call you Diane or whatever you prefer. But you're still a dude. No matter how much you tell me you're a girl.
Yeah.
And my perception, my truth, is you're still a dude.
I think that's like also where things are fuzzy within the line of like sex and gender. Because like, yeah, for like most transgender people, they still retain their same sex.
Yes.
That never changes. And that's like what people like don't seem to really understand is that like we're not worried about that in like most instances that we're like interacting with the person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're worried about things that are more socially predicated, like how we interact with them. And based on like what society says, how you should act being a boy or a girl, for example, they're usually going to like go one way or another. Not only that though, some of these ideas are just a lot more fluid than we think they are. So for example, we can have a straight guy that wants to wear a skirt and paint his nails and still wants you to like call him like he, him. It's just like not black and white.
I've totally been that dude.
I mean, I've met people like that. You know what I mean? Like, I have friends that are like that. And so, like, to me, like, the thing that I want to ask people a lot of times is, why do you care? You know what I mean? Because people are people. Most of us don't want to be harped on for being the way that we are. So why should we harp on other people for being the way that they are?
Yeah.
Not only that, aren't we in the land of the free?
Yeah.
So that's why, like, for me, it comes back to respect. Like, treat people how I want to be treated. Treat them how they want to be treated.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not going to harp on them for living their lives and doing what they want to do, but they also can't harp on me for my perspective and my beliefs as well.
But what's interesting, too, is that, like, yours wouldn't really come up.
Yeah.
The fact that you see them as a dude still, you know what I mean? Like, it would never, like, come up. You know what I mean?
Unless you're getting into an in-depth conversation.
Yeah.
But, just in general, people on
at that point, they would probably make the same, like, statement, like, yeah, you're looking at, like, my biology.
Yeah.
Yeah, biology, like I'm still XY. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's just like interesting too, because even when we boil it down to that level, it's not quite as cut and dry as we think it is. So do you remember during the Olympics there were like some female athletes that like crushed their opponents? And it was almost like similar to the transgender woman that went into the UFC and she beat up like several women. And like I watched some interviews like from them, and they were like, "I've never been hit that hard by a girl before."
Yeah.
And it's like this individual actually did have 18 years of the benefits of testosterone before they transitioned. So it's like, like we're kind of like we're seeing where the gray areas are.
Yeah.
But in this like in the most recent one of the most recent Olympics, there were some female athletes that, as far as we know, they're not transgender at all. But there's other things that could be in their favor that has to do with their biology. So, for example, have you heard of like intersex people?
Yes.
Okay, so intersex people, they'll have XX chromosomes, sometimes XY. So, like that track star, for example, the South African one, I can't remember her name right now, but she has testicles that are where her ovaries should be. But otherwise, she has a vagina and she has breasts.
Okay.
Now it's not quite as black and white because like she has testes. That's why one of the reasons why her testosterone is higher and why they were like trying to debate if they wanted to kick her out of the Olympics or not.
Yeah.
Right. So then not only that, but you also have sensitivity of androgen receptors. So for some of these women that are in the Olympics recently, they could have super high sensitivity in their androgen receptors that's just soaking up and really, really using the testosterone they have in their bodies really, really well, so that they do happen to be as strong as the average man.
Yeah.
There's just like so many variables.
Well, that's it for this part of the conversation with Derek. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to catch the next one, as we're going to dive even deeper into his creative processes and overall philosophies. Now, don't forget to check out his channel, Enigmatic, on YouTube. I'll do my best to include the link in the descriptions, but if I screw it up somehow, please just search for Enigmatic on YouTube and look for his signature style. Now, thanks for spending this time with me. Please like and subscribe. Hit that little bell icon so that way you're notified when that next episode drops. Again, I love you all, and as always, keep it shiny.